So good. Anna, welcome to Spark TV. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I know, fellow WA girl, I don't always get to speak to people in the same time zone, so I'm very
I
excited
know.
about that. And you have wine. Cheers.
Cheers, rosé, Grenache, something from
Oh,
Vino Mofo.
oh, nice. I love Vino Mofo. It's so good, isn't it? Hashtag they should sponsor this podcast.
I
Anyway,
know, they should.
I love that. So good. Well, let's get started with telling everyone who you are and what you do.
Yep, sure. So I'm Anna Oliver. So my business is Anna Oliver Psychology. So I'm just a solo little lady in a rural town of Lehmans, which is 3 hours north of Perth. I think the population here is like 300, 600 when it's
What?
holiday makers. Yes, yes.
Oh my
You
God.
heard?
Okay, hold on. I have been complaining about 30,000 people in Kalgoorlie and you
Oh
live.
my God, 30,000.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my God, my life is over. 300 people. Are you kidding me?
yeah. But hey, we made the decision. We chose to live here. We love it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so started up my private practice about 3 years ago because there's not any sort of psychological support in any sort of surrounding towns. I think there's a psychologist in Jongra, but you're looking at another sort of 90 k's north. So
Wow.
I source like Lehman, Greenhead, Jurien Bay, those sorts of clients will come and see me, and then I'll do telehealth for like Karoo, Mora, Perth, just anywhere really. I can sort of offer that support to anyone. So I work with predominantly adults at the moment, but I do work with quite a few adolescents and the odd child. So I don't see too many. That's by case because that's not my calibre. But I had a few mums in the beginning like, will you help? And I was like, oh, okay,
That's
just as long
right.
as
Oh
you know
my
it's
God.
not my speciality. And they were like, that's fine. So, they weren't too young. They were still like 8 or 9. So I was like, yeah, I can work with that. So I'm still seeing them today. So that's really good.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
So how long have you been doing this?
Yeah, so private practice 3 years, but how long have I been in this sort of industry?
Yeah.
How long have I been a psychologist for?
Forever.
6 years, but then being in this industry while you're studying and stuff since, early 20s, I guess. So 10 years or something.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, what have I done? I worked at like a youth centre in Perth and did subcontract into a high school. I then worked with Holyoake Drugs and Alcohol in Midland for a bit, which was awesome. And then I was at a private practice in Fremantle for a while. And then I actually completely burnt out. And I was like, nah, never again. I'm not doing psychology. I'm done. I'm out. Did like a complete career, well, not career, but just a job shift. My beautiful sister-in-law has a food company. And I was like, can I just work with you for a bit? And we're planning to move to this beautiful town of Lehman. So we moved here and I just was very, very lucky and privileged to just, because there's not much job opportunities here, right? So we were like, just get here and I'll just make a baby and then I'll be busy with a baby. But, things didn't happen straight away. So I was like, okay. So I just had all this time to like do my own journey, my own healing stuff. And then I was like, wow, let's start a practice. And then I'm my own boss. I call the shots.
Yes.
I can do my own thing, which I think it's awesome that it's here, but it's a shame in some ways because I'm sort of like, oh, I should have done this years ago. I would have, I think, really thrived years ago. I think, yeah, just some of the places I worked for, just that pressure of an employer. And I've got that sort of that people pleasing and like I'll just go the extra mile kind of template just meant that I would just burn myself out basically.
Wow. It's really interesting, isn't it? I think that that's something amazing about being in your own business is, look, absolutely people who run their own businesses get burnt out. Happens to the best of
Yeah.
us from time to time. But at the end of the day, we do have a little bit more control over the way we structure things, and we do have a little bit more freedom and flexibility to change things if they're not working for us versus being in an employment situation. It's really interesting. Even just thinking about business model design, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts about that lately and just thinking about your personality type, and if you're someone who
Yes.
really thrives one-on-one or if you're not someone that thrives one-on-one and you prefer big group things, or if you like the marketing side of things versus client delivery, something like really just thinking about who you are as a person, what works for you. I think businesses are this amazing vehicle to create something that actually works for us and supports the life we want to live.
Definitely. And that was part of our whole plan of moving up here. Was we were like, how can we work smarter instead of harder?
Yeah.
And I think, from the models that I was working in companies, it was billable hours. So it was like, see 6, 7 clients a day, 5 days a week. And I'm like, that's going to burn anybody out.
Yeah.
Whereas here it's sort of like, I can pick my niche. I can decide who's going to be, and also I'm not right for everyone. I'm not going to say I'm a specialist for everyone. And that's where you can pick and choose as well as going, well, what do I enjoy and what am I really good at and what is enjoyable essentially. And then, you do pick clients that are a bit more challenging and then you upskill yourself. And, but yeah, and I think too, with my business, there's so much capacity to do more. It's just finding the time and the energy, I guess, because I feel like I can be quite creative and I'll have all these ideas and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then I'm like, oh, I'm too overwhelmed, I don't know where to start. And then I don't do anything. So, but I think, there's a lot of, creativity you can put into this industry and in different avenues of income, because working individually with clients day in and day out, it can be quite draining. Like I wouldn't be able to do individual work full time. I'd have to, break it up, whether that's mentoring or, coming up with a training program or, I've got big dreams about like a women's wellness retreat or something, like just something else.
Count me in. That sounds so good.
Just something where you're not in such a professional role and you just, that, I just love that sort of creativity side.
Because surely it's hard not to take things home. Like, so I have a therapist and I love therapy. I think
Therapy's the best.
Therapy's the best. Oh my God. Okay. Let's just have that conversation. Who should go to therapy? Everybody.
Everyone. I'm just such an ambassador for therapy. I love it so much.
It's really interesting. So I started therapy with an ex-boyfriend. So we were in a long-term relationship and he really struggled with mental health issues, which put a strain on the relationship. So that was kind of the Kickstarter for me going to therapy. But I've stayed with that same lady since forever and still go to her. And that's, and I just, it's really interesting now. I see it as an athlete has a nutritionist and a therapist and a coach and a this and a that. And I feel like so I think about it in two ways. I think about it as being a business owner and being a person trying to exist in life. And I think,
definitely,
you need people around you need experts and coaches and help in all of these different areas. And I think that the mental game of life and business is so difficult and important. Why wouldn't you have a therapist, even if you're not? I think too many people associate it with you have a problem, so you need to go to a therapist.
You have a mental health issue or you've been diagnosed with something and that's the time you go. But I'm like, no, go for like, you're in a crossroad. You don't know, you're not feeling it with your job. Go, do some value alignment stuff. Like the biggest change of my life was I went to my last company before I quit Psych. It was a very lovely opportunity. I won a competition to go to Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins.
Oh, cool.
It was awesome.
Yes.
But that was all about like values and value alignment. And it was just like, there's so much you can do. And and you've got psychologists out there that specialize in certain things, but relationship issues or, not sure what to do with your career or just like life improvement. Like, why not go and just be like, I'm actually pretty happy, but how can I make things even better? Totally. Or like my mum really pisses me off. Why is that? And they'll be like, okay, well, your childhood. And then they'll be like, oh, shit, why did I open that can of worms? But, you know,
Oh
there's
my
so
God,
much
it's so
to
true.
it.
Yeah, and it's just, and one of the biggest things I love is the person asks you questions that nobody else in your life would ask you. You
Yeah.
know, well, it depends on, you know, your partner and your family and your friends and all that kind of stuff. But I just found like there's been no one in my life that will have that level of conversation with me and push me to actually care about what my values are and question what I want out of life, and really, you know, I'm a recovering people pleaser as well, and
Yep.
really figure out if the decisions I'm making actually do align with what I want, or if I'm making them to please somebody else. Like I just
Yeah.
find that the level of conversation you can have with somebody who has, you know, learned about your history but is also objective is just next level. It's so cool.
Oh, yeah. And I think, well, I think especially because I think society in general, we just have that mindset of like keeping up with the Joneses, and like this is how you do life. You
Mhm.
do school, you do uni, you get a partner, you get married, you have kids, you have a career, you get the house, you get, you know, I'm not saying that's everyone, and you know, a lot of us are privileged to have that or whatever, but you know, I think a lot of people are unhappy, and it's not because they necessarily have depression or anxiety. I'm like, actually, the way society operates isn't necessarily healthy, and maybe you actually need to live in a different way. And that's kind of why we moved, was because we were like, we don't like the hustle and bustle anymore. We
Yeah.
want the option to go back, which is great
Mm.
because all of our friends and family are there, but we like the idea of slow pace living, presence, you know, just chill, like time to just reflect. But I think, yeah, a lot of people wouldn't know that that's why they're upset, or that's why they're in pain, or that's why they're anxious, you know, until maybe they decided to go and actually explore things like values, you know?
So, is there a way to bridge the gap for people, like when we talk about values? Are there exercises or questions that somebody could ask themselves to kind of just start diving in if they haven't taken the leap to talk to a psychologist yet?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, you can do it as simple as just write down your values, obviously, which I'm sure we've all done, like, you
Mm,
know, those team builders or team like break the ice things at some team
yeah.
building exercise, but it's going a bit deeper than that. So I guess you'd have, let's say, write 10 values down, and then it's sort of like, then instead, you know, that's a very superficial level, I guess. I guess it's trying to go a bit deeper of being like,
Mm,
you know, what would life look like if, you know, say one of mine is freedom. So before, obviously, you know, before knowing that, obviously, I didn't
mm,
feel free in my life. So then it's like, what would life look like? So it's kind of getting a little bit deeper into that. And then
yeah.
I guess it's kind of going through with each value and getting a bit deeper around what would life look like? How would life be different? How would I be different? It's kind of like you're kind of going down a rabbit hole of just peeling
Mm,
back all the layers, because would you even still be where you are if those you actually implemented those values?
yeah.
Um, and then I guess scaling them back, because I mean, 10 values is great, but we probably can't live authentically with 10. So then sort of scaling it
Mm,
back to, well, what's my, you know,
3.
what's my top, yeah, my top 3 to 5 or whatever, and then
Mm.
sort of scaling them like that. But yeah, look, there's lots of good stuff on Google as well. Good
And I
old
wonder
Google.
too, like how much we would write down things that we think we're supposed to say. So
Yes. Yeah.
sometimes we're having somebody that can actually facilitate with you and be there with you and ask you and question why, you know, something is
Yeah.
or isn't important to you, is why I think it's so helpful having, you know, somebody else there that understands what you're going through.
Well, that's it, because you'll, you know, the first time you do the values will be completely different to once you've broken that all down, explored it all, because there's all, like you said, the first time you do it, there's all these deep seated reasons as to why you've chosen, like money. Okay,
Yeah.
well, we all would love money, right? But then, you know, you break it down, it turns out that it's like, oh, well, my dad, you know, all he cared about was money, and like,
Mm.
you know, he came from nothing and built it up. So I've got to do the same. And you're like, whoa, like, that went from money to this. So it's actually, is it about money,
Yeah,
or is it
yeah.
actually acceptance from your dad. So it's like, it's
Mm.
quite interesting, yeah, how deep it can go.
Oh my God, that's full on, isn't it? So how
Yeah.
did you go? It is, isn't it? Oh my God. We'll turn this into a therapy session. We have wine, it's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
yes.
how did you go from working for someone, obviously going through that burnout, going through that healing process, but then becoming a business owner? So, I'm sure the working from somebody else to then working for yourself, whilst it's afforded you the opportunity to be more flexible and more free, I'm sure going into business for yourself was, a learning curve.
Oh, massive. I was like, how to start a business. No, like,
Google,
yeah,
thank
massively.
you,
Yeah,
business coach. Yes.
exactly. And especially for psychologists, it's one
Mm,
thing. Oh, yeah, cool. Like I was like, I made a business name. Tick. I'm done for today. But you've got to then look at like Medicare, billing,
mm,
codes. So it was wrapping my head around that. Then it was sort of like, what do I even say about myself? And then it's that confidence and imposter syndrome, right? So,
mm.
I mean, I think we all struggle with that, but I feel like that's something I've really struggled with. Never, feeling like you're giving enough or knowing enough, which now in hindsight, I'm like, whoa, way too much pressure on myself. Like, I'm a human at the end of the day. I never am going to know everything.
Mm.
So it was just a slow burner of just being like, okay, I want templates for GPs, I want templates for invoices, and in the beginning, I literally was doing everything for myself. So I still am, but I didn't have practice software. So
Yeah.
I've got practice software now, which I know that there's way more cool things it does. I really need to sit down and be like, how do I use you? But like the main thing I'm using now is it just does your bookings. It automates text messages to clients to just remind them. The
Nice.
notes are electronic, whereas before I was sitting there like, I'll just get my diary out and like just
Yeah.
so time consuming going into Dropbox. And yeah, it was daunting, but again, I was lucky to sort of have the time and the space to kind of be like, I'm going to do a little bit of this today and then I'll have a break,
Mm.
or I'm going to get a bit of inspiration and do a little bit more. But I feel like once that drive gets in, then I get really excited, and then I feel like, yeah. And then I
Take
went
over
and
the world.
visited the GPs in Jurien, which Perth people probably don't have time to do, but so I wanted to put a face to the name for them. And then it was like a waiting game. It was like, and you put advertising, which was basic, just like in the local rags, like you've got the
Mm.
Craytails and Jurien and the Snag Island and Lehman. So I'm like, put an ad in,
So
waiting.
good. Yep.
Yeah. And then it's just, I mean, the main thing, obviously, majority of people come through the mental health care plan, which you need to go through your GP. So it was just waiting. And it was
Mm.
probably a month and I got my first referral. And then, yeah, it kind of just came in quite consistently after that. And then it was just steady. And that was nice because, yeah, the last thing I'd want to go from is nothing to full on. But yeah, it just meant you can kind of pick your own time and day and be flexible. And now I'm a mum, so I'm much more, my time is much more constricted, I guess.
Yep.
It's not as easy just to be a bit free flowing. But yeah, I think being a mum adds another layer of confidence. I don't know. I'm just a bit more like, let's just do it. Get in, get out, let's do it.
I mean, it's so funny. There is that saying, like, if you want something done, give it to a mum. Like they will find the time. They will make it happen. They will just fit it in amongst like mums are just super women. Yeah, so much
Oh,
respect.
sure are. Yeah.
You mentioned imposter syndrome, and I think it's something that I don't know. I really feel like it's something that's come up a lot just recently, like in the last couple of years. I don't know whether we called it something different or we weren't talking about it as much, if we were all just burying our feelings in the past. But I
Yeah.
do feel like it's a topic that is really like on everyone's minds. And I guess now we have a label for the way that we're feeling. Is there anything that you did to work, like other than, giving yourself a kick up the bum and saying, hang on a second, this is not right? Was there anything that you did to try and help yourself, I guess, feel those feelings and do it anyway and push forward with the business?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm someone that's struggled with anxiety my whole life anyway. So you've got but I mean, I was just someone that always soldiered on. So anxiety for me, it's like third arm. I'm like, anxious today. Cool.
You're
That's all
coming
right. We're just
too.
gonna,
Don't worry.
yeah, no worries. We're just going to do it anyway. So
Yeah.
that was, you know, the anxiety was nothing new, which of course is always there for anyone starting a new business. And I guess with the imposter syndrome, I had it with other companies as well. Some companies were very nurturing and kind and very good supervision, and others were much more like, if you don't know it, figure it out. And you'd be like, well, okay,
Yeah.
I'll Google or
Google
whatever.
again. Yeah.
Yeah. But so I guess starting my own thing, I think initially I just sort of said, look, just, you know, just put it out there. And just, I think for me, what helped me feel safe, not safe, but, you know, felt contained a bit when I was advertising was like, be very clear of the clients you work with and very clear with the clients that you don't. Because that was going to help alleviate some anxiety, because I was like, what if the GP refers this person? Or, you know, what if they ring me up and they want to, you know, should I take them on? And it was sort of like, just be so blatantly obvious. Like, yeah, I think that's my model with anything with my business is, you think you don't need to say it, say it. So in an email, like, these are my working, like, I'm very, very boundaried, like so boundaried, and I have to be, and it just works so well for me because I was raised and in my early 20s, mid 20s, boundaryless. So I'm very boundaried now. So that was my thing.
You've been on that roller coaster already.
Oh yeah. So that's the way to go, is just, okay, I feel like an imposter, but I can't do everything. What am I confident in? And that's, you know, I had a huge background with adolescents. They're great. They're fun. You can be a little bit more informal with them. You know, I feel like I connect quite well. So I was like, we pushed that out to the universe a bit. And, you know, and obviously anxiety, depression, that's pretty much a ballpark. And then I really do enjoy, you know, people that come in with anxiety, depression, but it actually works out to be like childhood trauma. So it was just like, let's start with that. And then we see how we go. And I think what helped as well was naming it. So if I did have like a parent or a client ring up being like, you know, this is my challenge, I just straight out name it. Hey, look, I have worked with clients with that in the past, but it's not my caliber. How do you feel about that? They'd say, oh, well, I just need the support. I said, let's see how we go. And if it's not working for you or I'm feeling out of my depth, let's just name it and I'll help you find someone else. And it was like, cool. You know, just setting that precinct from like the get-go was really, really helpful. And then just once they start coming in and they come back and you're having those connections, it's like, oh, maybe I'm not so bad at this job.
No,
maybe there's something here. Yeah.
It is interesting. I think there's like two really interesting things there. And the first one is, you know, you talked about it in terms of, you know, patients or, you know, people that you would see or treat, you know, for everyone listening, that is your ideal customer, right?
Yes.
So I think you're just spot on, like actually figuring out where you feel comfortable to start with and where you feel confident, and setting those boundaries around, this is who I look after, this is who I serve. It does two things. It not only helps you feel better, but it also helps you attract the right people, right? Like, you are one person, you don't have time to talk to every man and his dog, and you also can't serve everyone. There's no business that is, oh, everybody is my customer. So by actually, love that, by naming it, by putting those boundaries in place, by being super clear about the customer that you serve, like that just alleviates so much more stress. But I think it also makes sure that when people do find you, they're the right person.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, everyone's dream is working and doing what they love, right? And of course, there's always parts of the job that are hard or strenuous or whatever, but you know, psychology is no different. You know, I'm going to be the best psychologist if I'm working with a caliber that I feel confident with and that I enjoy. Because, you know, initially part of that, I guess, not having the knowledge or that imposter syndrome a bit was in the beginning. I was like, well, I'm rural, so like there's no other services, so I must have to bulk bill. You know, that was a real, and I talked to one or two people and they're like, no one's going to come, like Lehman, you know, there's not much money, nobody's going to come to you, you've got to be really cheap. And I was like, And I was really struggling with that because
Mm.
a part of me was saying, no, I feel like my worth is more than that. The other
Yeah.
part is like, oh, but I should be serving everyone. And then the
Mm.
other part is you work from home. So we don't want everybody because one, that's not safe. Two, it's burnout. Like,
Mm.
anyway, and that's when I was like, consult with my supervisor, who sort of was my supervisor through my training and stuff. And she was like, what are you talking about, bulk bill? She's like, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this, you will worth more. She's like, I think you should charge this. And I was like,
Oh
whoa,
my God.
really? I was like, I'm going to
Yeah.
charge a little bit less than that, but thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and because she said it straight out, you don't charge what you're worth. All you're going to do is resent it, be unhappy. So yeah, I really remembered that and was like, no, I'm, which is hard too, right? To be like, am I really worth that much? But
Mm.
yeah, I think over time, and I think too now, life's, yeah, I'm just sort of like, if I'm not for you, whatever, that's cool. That's fine. And I'm not
Oh,
going to be for everyone. And even clients, I know that it's slim pickings. I am the only sort of on-site person, but I always say to clients, I might not be your cup of tea, and that is okay. Name it, or I'll pick up on it. That is cool. We'll look to find you. It'll have to be telehealth, but I can't, like you said, can't serve everyone.
yeah. And you're right. And it's just also that abundance mindset of I might not be for you, and that's okay because there'll be plenty of other people out there. My business is still going to thrive at the level at
Yeah.
which I am charging, at the type of customer I want to serve. There is enough. We have enough humans on the planet that
Yes.
doesn't matter what niche you pick or what price point you pick, there will be enough customers to actually reach or hit
But
your
it's
goal.
just, it's so interesting in the beginning though, how you doubt that. You're like, oh, but, or if someone doesn't come back, or you think you need to be everything for everyone. And yeah, I know that's a hard thing for everybody, but I think
And even
it's just
like,
time, and you just shake it off as time goes on.
yeah, and even that, like, um, they won't be able to afford this. Like, even making decisions for other people that you've never met,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah. I'm
like,
mind reading the
totally.
whole vicinity. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy? It's so funny. It's like, so that's just coming up a lot lately, this concept of self-rejecting. I had a woman, so the new Spark grants are launching today. And so we're doing a little bit of outreach and what have you for it. And I had a lady reply to just a general info email, just saying, look, this sounds amazing. It's so good. Awesome, awesome, awesome. But unfortunately, it's probably not for me because I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. And I was like, well, none of those are criteria. You just selected yourself out for no reason. Like, you just
Yeah.
made up a bunch of reasons why you are not the right fit, even though none of those are actually a criteria for this. Like, and I'm like, why do we do
Yeah.
this? Why do
I
we
know.
make crap up that doesn't exist and then like cap what we can do, cap our worth, cap our scale, cap our growth? It's just, and then like turn around and we are resentful and we are not hitting the goals that we want. Like, it's just blows my mind.
Yeah, totally. It's like job descriptions, or like a job advert comes off and you're like, oh, well, I don't have that. And yeah, I had a friend once, because I think we all, like you said, we all do it. And I had a friend once, she's like, it's not that you haven't done it. It's just you haven't maybe done it the way they want. You just got to be creative and,
Yes.
right. And I was like, 100%. Yeah. And then but yeah, it is sad that we do that to ourselves. We're all very, yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
I think it's like, comes back to what we were talking about earlier, like the mind, right? Your mind is
Mm.
just so powerful, but unfortunately it can work for or against you, and it is
Yeah. And I think
hard to.
women, where we do it more, right? Men are
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'm going to apply for that job, and they've got no experience. A woman's like, oh, well, I meet 8 of the 9 criteria, so I better not apply. The guy's like, I need nothing. So I'll just,
It's insane, isn't it? Like, I don't know
yeah,
what's wrong with us. What is wrong with
I
us?
know. I know.
Mm.
Society, programming. Oh,
Oh, it's great.
yeah.
This is why we need therapists, so that we can
Yes,
get over
everyone,
our own
therapy.
stuff. Totally.
Yeah. Get out of our own way.
Yeah, and it is really interesting because I find that a lot of the times it is just having that outside perspective of having somebody, because we're not all, as business owners, we can't, like, not all of our friends and family understand what we do and what we're going
Yeah.
through. And it is nice to have somebody to go to that you can actually talk about things, and talk through scenarios and situations, and have them just help check yourself a little bit in, like, why
Yeah.
you're telling yourself whether you can or can't do something. Yeah, I think it's just, I know I'm like now on the like therapy train. I'm like, all right, everybody.
I
But
know.
it
I know.
is really
I was
true.
thinking, yeah, I was thinking that. I was like, oh, is this going to end up me just talking about therapy and stuff as opposed to business? But it's all good.
Well, and I mean,
But there's a lot of therapy involved for anyone starting a business because, like you said, all these thoughts come up for everyone. Imposter syndrome. How am I going to do it? Anxiety,
mm,
stress. You know, especially if you don't have my thing for anyone is like boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. I'm like the boundary queen now. It's like, yeah, it can
how do we
be
set
so
boundaries?
overwhelming.
How do we, what's like a quick tip, like something that I can do to like tell people to stop following my emails up? No. I had this, I'll give you one.
Yeah, good.
So I've just come back from my honeymoon, and I did a couple of things, like a couple of clients. I kept happy, and I had this one client who's a new customer. So I was kind of just keeping him, entertained. Anyway, he emails me at like 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon, and I was like, I'm in transit back. Follows me up on Sunday, follows me up at 9 o'clock on Monday morning,
Oh,
and like, and the is, are we going to have this level of difficulty communicating when I am a customer? And I was like, hang on a second. There hasn't
oh,
even been a 24-hour, like a 12-hour window of business hours, and you've sent me 3 emails. And I definitely did the, look, whilst as a business owner, I sometimes do reply on weekends. None of my team will ever do that. They do not work on weekends. I do not expect them to. So, we do have
good
this
on
kind of
you.
response on. But I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I was
Yeah,
furious. I was fuming.
totally. He's trying to push boundaries and get his way.
Exactly. It's not even a customer
Yeah.
yet. Oh my God. Red flag. Red flag.
Yeah, red flag. I think if you take him on, you have to be. But it's
Oh,
interesting, I think, because even I fall into the trap, and there's something about someone's igniting something in you where you have that, you feel yourself being drawn into it, like, oh, I better reply. And
mm,
then I'm like, oh,
mm.
what are they triggering in me? Like, why do I've been boundaried with Bob over there? Why? Like, it is interesting. But a quick tip, I think you feel it in your body,
Mm.
right? You feel that, or the second you feel any form of like resentment,
Yes.
boundary. You feel tense. You're like, oh God, oh, should I, shouldn't I? Anytime you have that argument in your head, should I do that thing? Should I not? You don't want to do it. You're trying to talk yourself into doing it. So just
Yes.
don't do it. Say no.
I
That's a
love
quick
that.
tip.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I love the say no. How do I say no? You just say the word no, like,
No.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, another quick tip is if you're too scared to say no, get up like straight off the bat, you say, I'll let you know. And it buys yourself time to build
Yeah.
up the courage to say no is a good
Yeah.
one.
Exactly. And like I always say to people, you know what, if you have to make up an excuse, I understand that sometimes, that's you feel a little bit silly about making up an excuse. But who cares? Like if it gets you out of an uncomfortable situation and it
Yeah.
makes them feel fine, then just do it. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You do
Yeah.
not owe anybody anything, especially when it's your time and business. And if it's going to take away from the values, like the reason why you built the business, or having to not spend time with your family, or whatever it might be.
Well, that's it, because it's exactly right. You say yes once to that, say, because there are
Mm,
people that push boundaries, and that would be across the board for anyone in business. You have these boundaries set and they push, and
mm,
then you be firm, and then they push again and you allow it, and then potentially it just becomes a problem, and then you're resentful, and then you're unhappy, and then you hate dealing with like that customer or whatever. And
mm.
it's tricky, though. It's tricky because I think too in the beginning you're on that crossroad of, well, I want to make money, right? Like I'm starting this
Yeah.
up, but like you're not really. Yeah, tough. Tough.
Yeah, and I do find it's a good when people say, if you say yes to something, you are inadvertently saying no to something else. So I always like to kind of think, okay, So if I say yes to this, then I'm saying no to going out to dinner with my partner. So
Yeah, that's a good way
then
to
do I want
think
to say
about it.
no to that, or do I want to say no to that? It's almost then pick your no rather than yes and no to that person. It's actually, well, pick your no. Do I want to say no to my darling, beautiful husband, or do I want to say no to this guy who's like being an asshole and he's not a customer yet?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Super interesting. Now we could talk all night because we have a glass of wine in our hand, but I always love to leave these podcasts with one piece of advice for other women in business. So, reflecting on your time as a woman in business, would there be a piece of advice that you would give to a fellow female founder who, might be struggling to show up in these, tough business times?
Yeah, I just think if you're thinking about it, you know, I know it's not as easy as just doing it, but it's just do it. And I'm always like, my biggest motto in life is you can change your life. So I just feel like something's not working, find the solution, find someone that can help you find the solution, someone that motivates you, that supports you, and start small. Like, give yourself, if you're not in a position, like I said, I was very privileged. I came to a small town, there was nothing else to do but time. A lot of people don't have that. They're working full time and then trying to start a business, which is huge. So it's just like, just do a little thing at a time, or find the thing that gets you all excited and creative, and then go with that for ages, because that'll, I just think start small, but just do it.
I love that so much. You're so spot on. I think that there's this narrative, especially online, especially Instagram, where, we've got to run so fast and we've got to achieve these big things. And if we're not having, 6-figure, 7-figure months, years, days, minutes, then we're failing, but I love how this conversation is really touched on figuring out what your values are, designing something around that, and then just taking small steps towards it when you can. Progress is progress.
Definitely. Yeah. And just living, that, like you said, you've said it beautifully, just living an authentic life, living and doing something that feels authentic to you, and then you can't go wrong.
I love that so much. You are incredible, Anna.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with the Spark community tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had a great time.
I know. We'll have to do it again, definitely.
Yeah. Awesome.
And everyone get therapy. That's the motto of this podcast.
Get therapy.
I love it so much. Cheers to you. Thank you, Anna. You are the best.
No worries at all.